Hello and welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. This is the second season of my podcast. It is called The Home Season and it is interviews with writers and artists in Australia. Today's episode is episode 19 and it is with Lorena Otes. She is a Sydney-based author, dance teacher, choreographer and a single mum by choice who wrote a memoir called Solo Mum by Choice. In our conversation, we chat about dance and writing and what she has learned from writing that she's taken into, or from dance that she's taken into her writing, and how she balances these two forms so that they feed into each other with things like, she has a 10-minute daily fiction experiment that helped her through a stretch of the hardest time during her IVF. I really enjoyed this conversation with Lorena and I am sure you will too. So I will see you on the other side. Hello, Lorena, and welcome to Creative Momentum with Meg. Can you just introduce yourself for the listeners and tell us a little bit about what your creative work is?
Yes. My name's Lorena Otes. I'm an author. My memoir, Solo Mum by Choice, just came out last month. I'm also a dance teacher and choreographer, and I'm a mum, and all those things come together in crazy and weird ways.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love the there's multiple parts of you, and I think this is for probably most creatives that we're not just creative in one way or another. Can you tell me, were you writing before you wrote your memoir, or was that your first time, trying your hand at writing?
Always writing. I've got a suitcase full of journals under my bed. So I was always writing, was always going to be a writer. After my HSC, I got into communications at uni and didn't do it. I deferred for a year to do ballet instead. And then my career ended up sort of going more along that path. And not as a ballet dancer, contemporary dance. And then with the memoir, I got back into it. I actually was writing the memoir, and then I thought, as I was going, I'm really enjoying this creative process, and how can I, write more and write different things, and also expand my CV, because I thought I need to, something. So I started writing short stories and articles and things as well. So I guess that tips back into the journalism thing from way back a little as well. So yeah, I love it. It's a really different form of expression to creating movement and dance, but I guess we'll delve into that as well, probably a little bit.
Yeah. Because I'm going to explore
Right?
that. And so, are you writing fiction now, or?
I am. I've got a really messy draft in my computer that I'm dying to get back to, but because it's only been a month since the release of my book, I'm doing snippets. I also have. Do you want me to tell you about that?
Yeah,
It's
go.
a women's fiction novel set in a ballroom dancing studio. So
Oh,
it's kind of two worlds coming together, which again is just delicious.
yeah.
It's got a bit of drama, it's got a bit of crime and a little bit of romance, but I wouldn't put it in any of those genres. It's just got little bits of everything happening in there. And I'm really excited about it. And I also have two children's books in my computer at the moment, and they're junior fiction, so around my daughter's age, 6 to sort of 9 years old. And the protagonists for those, they're a little bit like Billy B. Brown. The protagonist is a double donor child, a little bit like my daughter, which means she was made sperm donor, egg donor. But that's not really the main thing. That's just a sort of a side thing. But I really want my daughter to be able to see herself in a main character in a book. And I think there's a lot of kids like that. So those stories are also done but need a lot of work. So, yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
Can you tell me a little bit about your routine for your creative work? And I'd like to know also, like, have you borrowed anything from your dancing kind of routine to take into the writing?
So my routine, I'm quite lucky because I'm freelance as a dance teacher. So I'm not 9 to 5. I'm not required for a lot of hours in terms of, the 9 to 5 thing. Um, I I get a lot of time at home. Like at the moment, my daughter's at school, and I have all day today until I go and teach tonight, where I do a lot of writing, and then I go and be creative in the dance studio and jump around, and I find that really, yeah, really fulfilling. So I'm lucky in that way. In terms of dancing feeding my writing, I am not very good at sitting still, so for long times. So sometimes I'll just get up and do some preparation for my classes in the middle of writing something, and I've got space behind me, and I'll just create some exercises and then come and sit back down again and continue writing just to get moving because I don't sit still for a long time in front of the computer. Having said that, I had some feedback from my publisher for my memoir, and she asked me to create a whole new part 3 for my memoir. And I sat down for hours, 5 or 6 hours at a time, writing about 1,000 words an hour. So when you're really in the zone, when it's all happening and you've got a bit of pressure on you, oh, I thrive with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
I do.
yeah. So that's how they sort of complement each other. And creatively, my mind is always spinning. I'm always coming up with movement when I'm driving the car to work. And now that's peppered with coming up with words. And both of them are, it's hard when you come up with words or movement when you're just about to fall asleep, or when you're driving in the car, you've got to pull over or you've got to wake up and write it down. They go hand in hand like that, I think. So, yeah, I love that.
Has the routine changed for your writing since your book has come out?
It definitely has, because I just don't have the time to do as much creative writing. I'm marketing at the moment and doing a lot of, I got myself on TV, but that for an interview, I don't know if you saw it, but that involved a lot of sitting at the computer and sending out emails to the till it finally landed with the right person. So if you think of that, that's one arm of what I've been doing since the book came out. Um, there's all the different things that I'm trying to do. I printed off some pamphlets and I now need to go out and hand those out in medical centres. So I just don't have the time to sit and write. So what I do in terms of maintaining that creativity until I do have those hours in front of the computer again, I enter quite a few short story competitions where 500-word short story competitions, Furious Fiction, Australian Writers Centre, I do that every month. Not Quite Right Prize, I do that every month, and there's a few others, because that forces me to sit down, polish the prose, write the prose. I would never hand in something I'm not happy with. So I put the hours in, and it keeps that side of my brain really active and hungry to get into my manuscripts that are sitting in my computer, rather than time just disappearing and I've got to do that, and then it becomes too much.
Yeah, and the admin side of being a writer can, it feels quite different to that creative part of the brain, doesn't it?
It is so crazy. And you've got to be a little bit extroverted, and you've got to turn up to events, and here I am, and you've got a microphone and you're speaking to people, and you're sitting at your computer and you're writing emails to try and get people to share your excitement for your creative work, my memoir. You're doing all this different stuff. You're not pouring your heart out on the page. You're trying to get other people to understand why you poured your heart out onto the page, and that's very different. It's a bit like writing a synopsis versus writing the prose. It's just so much more clinical, but so necessary.
Yeah. I was going to say, but it's so necessary, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like we have to put in the hours to do that
we do.
admin work.
And surprisingly, I don't dislike it. Like I feel quite satisfied. Like I sit there and I really believe in my product. And I think no one's going to believe in your work more than you do. Even if you're not confident, I really believe that this book needs to get into the hands of certain people in particular, but I also believe it's a global memoir with, global kind of themes. So I'm like, why wouldn't you want it? So
Mm.
tap, 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 tap to try and get it into the hands of people and try and share the excitement that I have for it, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. So yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely makes sense. And solo mum by choice, I'm so glad that you've got this memoir out there. One of my cousins decided to become a mum by choice as well.
Oh, fabulous.
And actually she inspired one of my characters in one of my stories. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
That's
because
awesome.
looking at those kind of motherhood themes,
Yeah.
I'm always quite interested in. Can you tell me a little bit about your creative process? So how do you go from idea to putting it
To
together?
putting it in. Okay, so for
Yeah.
my memoir, because it wasn't fiction, I went through 2 rounds of IVF and I had this idea that something interesting was going on, and it wasn't a common sort of IVF story. There was more to it. There was the solo mum aspect. There was the fact that I like to put humor into things, and I see humor, and I thought some really funny things are happening, and I can lighten the load with this. And I thought, why don't I just start writing it down? Because, this isn't just, and then I went to the doctor and da 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 da. This was like, you know, I walked out of a dance class and tripped over and broke my foot kind of funny. There's stuff like that just happened all the way through. Obviously fiction's a bit different, and so when I'd finished my memoir and I'd had my publishing deal and everything like that, I then decided it was safe to kind of get into working on my fiction, and I was writing away based on my own experiences, and the main character was loosely based on me. And then I thought, hang on a sec, this doesn't have to be true, and I can go off into these tangents. And it was really fun. Sometimes I went too far and had to pull myself back in a little bit because it still has to be believable. I created an antagonist character, which in my memoir I did have, because there was a few antagonists, but it was more the IVF and the situation itself that was the antagonist. So, and I got craft books, and I was writing Save the Cat writes a novel. I didn't know anything about that stuff. So I was sort of flying by the seat of my pants, and I am a bit of a pantser, I've found out. But I also loved that freedom. It was also a little bit intimidating as well.
Yeah. I'm just going to define what a pantser is, because I have had some people who are not writers saying to me, what is a pantser? So I'm going to say, for those listening who are curious about what a pantser is, it is people who are writing by the seat of their pants, basically, and writing as the words come out. There's, I actually think it's a spectrum of
Yes,
going from a complete pantser who
which,
literally just sits down and just writes,
yeah, yeah.
to a complete plotter who maps the entire thing out scene by scene before they start
Spreadsheets,
any.
there's spreadsheets.
Yeah. And there's everything in between. So for
Yeah,
those listening who are wondering what a pantser is, there it is.
yeah. And I think you're right, spot on with the spectrum thing, because I'd say I'm not a complete pantser. I definitely have ideas, and I think most people do. I'd love to see what happened if I just sat there and things came to me. I think that'd be a bit dangerous. But yeah, there's definitely a spectrum.
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
you on that spectrum?
I am close to the complete pantser, but I do like to have a skeleton of
Yeah,
having an idea of what it is, and like my historical that is currently being looked at by some people. Um, it it started with the skeleton,
yeah,
basically, and so I just put the flesh on the bones.
yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and as I'm going, probably a bit like Sophie Stern, for those who listen to Sophie's,
So
I like to, yeah, she, I use my spreadsheets to then kind of keep an eye on what's going on, and, with word count and where I think the arc in the story is, and making
yeah,
sure that I'm kind of bringing it up until,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so
It's
yeah.
it's funny you mentioned Sophie Stern, because she's another debut crew member, and her novel What Is Left for Us is fantastic. She's a massive spreadsheet fan, and when you were talking about that and I said spreadsheets, she was who I had in mind, so it's so funny you mentioned her.
Yeah,
She's amazing.
we did riff a little bit about spreadsheets in
I
it.
bet I haven't heard that episode yet, but it's next after Cassie's. So
Yeah, because pretty much my entire life is in a spreadsheet.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I'm a big believer in the spreadsheet. I just think
yeah.
it's a
I love
tool that we
spreadsheets.
get to
Yes,
use.
it is. It's great. I love that.
From who, what, or where do you get your inspiration for your creative work? Obviously, you were inspired by your own journey for your
Mhm.
memoir, but
Yeah.
say for short stories or the fiction you're now writing, or maybe even your dance as well. Like,
Yeah.
what are the things that inspire you?
It's hard sometimes to get inspiration. I spent all of last year writing a 100-word story every single day because of all these competitions that I do. They give you word prompts, but sometimes it's hard to come up with something. Sometimes the prompts are so obscure. You just think, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I've got to set it on a football field. Like, I don't like football. What am I going to do with that? So it sort of inspires you to come up with something that might be something different that could happen on a football field. It doesn't have to be during a game. It could be, a tour of Wembley Stadium or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? So things can come to you that way. So I did that to bank some ideas, which I find really helpful. I get inspiration from my daughter. Sometimes she's 6 and we see things that you don't see in usual life with a child who's under 10, I think. She's always picking up objects, flowers, sticks and stones. We spent 2 hours at the beach the other day. She was covered in sand, and then we went on a Ferris wheel. And that kind of thing to me is just like there's so many things that you could draw from just that very simple. And I sat there. I was having coffee with a friend, and then they had to go, and I sat there while she played for an hour, and I just watched her, and my mind just went. And I find that kind of thing really. I was watching a seagull. This is really weird. I was watching a seagull flap out in toward the ocean, and I was trying to watch it for as far as it would go, wondering where it was going and where it was going to end up. There's a story, or part of a story. There's an inspiration for a story. So I think at the moment I'm really lucky because life is rich in that way. My dad's a writer, and he edited my book, and I get a lot of inspiration from him. Shout out to my dad. I'm always learning from him. In terms of dance, I get a lot of inspiration from music, and I actually teach choreography streams. I have a degree in choreography and contemporary dance, and we learnt, and I'm still encouraging my students to find inspiration in art, in everyday things, in the formation of clouds, just to look around. I used to have a book that I wrote it all in. So I'm just always looking for little snippets of inspiration that can bloom into something more, which sounds really cheesy when I say it like that, but I think if you actually sit down and put pressure on yourself, you can't do it. You have to find this stuff when you're not ready for it and keep.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think that children are fantastic because they are just so curious. And at some point we decide we're not going to be curious or we're going to be grown-ups and adult-like.
Yeah,
But I think when we go back to that childlike curiosity, there's inspiration everywhere.
I know. When we had COVID and we were in lockdown, and my daughter was 1, 2, she was really little, and we would just wander up to the front of our place in our pajamas every day and chat to the neighbours. And there was succulents growing. There was, all these little flowers and beautiful little structures that I would never have noticed otherwise. And we watched sunflowers go from a seed. Like it sounds so boring, but it was also beautiful and inspiring, and it just unlocks something in you, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. My kids are young adults now, but I do remember those years and like just
Mm.
how they would just like look at a leaf for a long time. And, that invitation for us as creatives is to go, well, what would that look like if we started kind of having that curiosity and you know,
exactly.
finding a leaf and just like really looking at it
I
and
know,
being
and
in
compare it
awe.
to,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And in
Yeah.
autumn, collecting different shades of leaves and just those
Yes.
things that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, if you were to be having a chat with someone who is either new to creative work, whether that's writing or dancing or whatever, or someone who was kind of in a, you know, I guess stuck,
Mm.
what wisdom would you want to share with them?
I think we all get stuck, and I think the best advice I've ever been given, and the advice I would hand on, would be very much to pull back into your immediate world, and to use a cliche, take one step at a time. So this is a good example. When I was writing my memoir, I didn't know how it was going to end. So I was doing a writing course with a fantastic woman called Bernadette Foley. I don't know if you know her. And I was just a bit of a mess. I was having failed IVF rounds. I had this book. I knew I had something. I didn't know if I was going to become a mum or not, because I was only in the middle of my 13 round saga of IVF. And she saw that look in my eyes and she said, "You need to put it down for a little while, but don't put down your creativity. Keep your creativity." She said, "What I think you should do, my advice is to just sit at your computer for 10 minutes a day, no more, no less. Open up your computer, your new fiction. This is the ballroom dancing one." And she said, "Have 10 minutes of play every day. Put your computer down at exactly 10 minutes." And that just ended up being really hard to do. I didn't want to put it down after 10 minutes, but I did that. I followed her advice, and then I was bursting to get back on it, and write my 10 minutes worth. And I would write like 500 words in 10 minutes because I'd been thinking about it, and it got me through a really rough writing patch. So I think, that exact advice might not work for everybody, but just taking little snippets, open up your computer, write a sentence, close it down again, put a pen to paper and draw a sketch. It doesn't have to be good, just do it. If you're an artist, if you're a creative and a dancer, you don't have to go into the studio to create. You can, do a little bit of movement out in an oval. Sometimes when my daughter's playing, I might like kind of, I probably look really weird, but I might just do a bit of movement, just to feel my body moving in the space of the outdoors. So it's may sound a little bit hocus pocus, but I think those little things are what get us to the bigger things, which is obvious. But when you're in a rut, you don't see that, and you just think everyone else has a book out, and everyone's successful, and everyone's doing this, and I'm the only one that's not published. But we've all been there. So it's
Yeah.
that thing.
I love that so much because I love play, and I think it's also like giving yourself permission to play,
Yeah,
which again, once we become
adult,
serious adults, we stop playing.
we do.
Let's play again, but also like time boxing it and going,
Yeah,
you've only got 10 minutes. And
because you
in
are
these
an
10
adult.
minutes, yeah, and that's all you're going to do.
Yeah.
And just play.
Yeah, it makes you so desperate to do more when you've got a time limit,
Yeah.
because when you've got all the time in the world, that's when you start doing the dishes and you start doing this and this. But when you're in that creative slump, but when you don't have all the time in the world and you're almost being told, you've got to do your 10 minutes today, it's nearly bedtime or something like that. You're kind of a bit like either, oh, I better do it, or, I've got all these
Yeah.
ideas and I've only got 10 minutes to get them out. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And did it unlock? So obviously it unlocked that
Did.
story. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did that for a long time, actually. I did the 10 minutes a day for a long time. Um, and then I got back to the memoir. I think I just needed to get out of that slump. But I took a while from the memoir. I think I took a couple of years actually from memory. I needed to stop, and I needed to just focus on, I took notes every time I went to the doctor. I have this notebook, but I just didn't write it until after. And I think I'd done a fair whack of the fiction. I'd done about 30,000 words, I think, which I changed all of it, but that didn't matter because it was there.
I think that's also great wisdom as well to know when to put the manuscript down for a bit. and that it's okay. Like it's,
Yeah.
you know, it takes as long as it takes. It's not a race. It's not a race to make things. That's fantastic. Tell me, what feels like home for you and your creative work, Lorena?
Ooh. Do you know, there's nothing like walking into a dance studio and seeing the ballet bar. That's my home. In terms of dancing, um, I just I walk in and it's been my home since I was 5 years old. So that to me is home. In terms of creative writing, um, I do love the whole day just goes when I'm sitting on my computer in the zone. So I'm really desperate to get back to writing again because um, it feels strange to say being at home is on my computer. I don't think it's being on my computer. I think it's being inside my story inside the computer, because I, I get lost in time and space in a way that I don't anywhere else. It's really weird. I've just discovered that in the last 5 years, I think, because writing my memoir became a bit of a task in the end because there was so much editing that needed to be done, and it's so difficult to step back from your own story. But when you're sitting there creating, I think it's really different, and I feel very at home in that space. But that wasn't my first answer, was it?
No, but it's okay to have more than one thing that feels like home.
Yeah, and of course
also
now my daughter, of course, feels like home, but that's a little bit different. She's inspiring in a different way. So yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, because you have these different kind of creative parts of you. So, I love that. Walking into that room and seeing the bar.
Yeah, it's funny because I took a few years away from the dance world. I actually ended up in retail. I was a manager at Virgin Megastore in Piccadilly Circus, believe it or not, and then at an ABC shop. So I've actually been a bookseller as well. And I was in that space for a good 15 years, probably 10 of which I hadn't entered a dance studio. So walking back in after all that time, and it's funny, I walked back into a ballroom dance studio and I was like, where's the bar? There was no ballet bar. And I was like, this isn't a dance studio. And then I started doing ballet again and getting back into that. And it is a dance studio, of course. It doesn't need the ballet bar, but that to me represents, my, I guess, story.
Does the dancing, like when you're doing dancing, maybe not teaching it so much, because I'm sure you're focused on the students and the class, but when you are doing dancing, do ideas for story come up for you now?
Yeah, because now I don't do class anymore. I do when I'm dancing, it's usually improv, and I usually do it when there's no students around. And I usually switch on some music and do a little bit of improv before they come in or after they've gone, just to, if I feel like I need to get something out. Yeah, I feel like I don't feel like stories come, but I feel like there's a sort of an unlocking of pathways, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and with music, if the right music's on and I'm connected to that music, then there's just something that happens that is definitely changes the way I write. So, and I kind of need to do that fairly regularly, even if, like I said to you before, it's just around the house. I'm often just down the hallway here, just doing a bit of movement, put on some music, that kind of thing. But I tell you what else helped, and you might be interested in this. When I was going through all the IVF and then writing the memoir, dance was one of my cruxes during that time as well. So when things are hard for me, in terms of trying to get a book published isn't that dissimilar to doing round after round of IVF, because you're just getting knockback after knockback. And unfortunately, we can't take you on at this time. Unfortunately, you're not pregnant at this time. And dance has been my constant through all of this. And trying to get a memoir published as an unknown memoirist is really hard. So I'm aware I'm in a really lucky position. Thank you to Hawkeye for taking me on, because they really believe in championing Australian voices like mine, and I'm lucky I found them and they found me. But dance, I go in and I teach my students. I can put on any music I like because I teach contemporary, and I just like I might have just been sitting in the gutter out the back of the studio, and I've just found out that I'm not pregnant again, and I'm crying, and then I go into the studio. Ta-da! Here I am. Like put on a fake kind of hi guys, let's mark the roll. How are you all today? And then the music comes on and we do exercises. And even though I'm in teaching mode, I just have this, like I can feel myself healing. And that's been part of the writing process as well, because there's a lot of rejection and it's not all happy, fluffy bunnies. And getting edited is hard. You know what structural edits are like? It's like a knife to the heart sometimes, because you think you've done something really well and they're like, no, this section shouldn't be in here at all. And you're like, oh, okay. I thought it was really compelling and it's not. But so dance has been a constant through that.
Yeah. And do you find now that writing becomes a like a salve in the same way or not?
Yeah, definitely. I've written a lot of articles that are very personal. I actually wrote one for Cope, which is a perinatal, about what it was like to do the 13. Ariane Beeston's amazing, by the way. About the 13 rounds of IVF I did as a solo mum, and it was quite personal. It was quite cathartic to get that out. I also, in the dancing world, there's been a body image thing in my life as well, and I've written quite a few fictional stories and also a non-fiction, a true story based around that, which has been really good because I think we need to talk about things like that more. So I find a catharsis in writing even fiction based on true story. There's in the Brussels Review, I have a short story at the moment which is based on a moment. It's called One Momentary Flicker, and it's based on a moment where my daughter and I were sitting at a bus stop in Newtown, and a woman sat next to us and we started chatting, and it turns out she had this incredible story, and she walked away after hearing my story, becoming a solo mum by choice, with this seed planted that maybe that's something that she might think about doing, given her horrendous history that she told me in snippets when my daughter wasn't listening, because it was quite traumatic. And I wrote that out in fiction form, and it's just we're so lucky as writers to be able to do that and to have people that want to listen to what we have to say, because when it's really important like that and it's giving people hope and giving messages, and it comes from a really true, authentic place, that is just, it's really incredible to be able to do that and to be able to be given the skill to do it well. Like we're lucky as writers that we have this kind of ability to do that as well, because not everyone expresses themselves in different ways, and it will be different in dance form. I wouldn't be able to tell that story in dance form in the same way. So yeah, in that way, the creative processes can be quite different.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think it is good to remember that as writers, we get to tell stories to help other people be able to process things in their lives, and
and make them laugh as well about the situation, maybe, because if you can laugh, I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't funny, and often with laughter there's a someone that suffers or gets, for me, I try to make that me a lot of the time, that person, the victim of the humor, for want of a better word, because I think sometimes you've just got to laugh at yourself. And if you can teach people that as well, or not teach them, but just show them that's like a coping mechanism. It's not for everybody, but sometimes it might lighten the load for people as well.
Yeah, because even in the darkest time, there is still humor.
There's got to be. Not in that moment necessarily, but you've got to step out eventually and just think, what was that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lorena, thank you so much for coming on Creative Momentum with me, and thank you for sharing your story. And there'll be links to your work and for ways to be able to connect with you in the show notes. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Meg. I've loved chatting with you. It's been really good. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and thanks, Lorena, again for so warmly coming on and being open about all of it, the hard parts, the funny parts, and the great parts, the parts that are still being written. You can find all of the links to Lorena's book, her website, and social media on the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please do go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. It doesn't take long, and it helps other creatives find these episodes, and maybe it might unlock something for them. Also, if you enjoyed this, the tip jar is open, and if you wanted to support the podcast in a nice little way, then the link is in the show notes as well. And I am deeply thankful for all of your support, for the listeners, the viewers, and the people who are supporting it financially. Thank you once again to Yvonne Morton for the beautiful music that you create for this show. The expression of interest is still there on the show notes page. So if you are a creative who would like to come on this show and have a chat about how you approach your creative work, please do pop on there and contact me through that, or send me an email or message me. I am really keen to hear from people who are doing creative work in all sorts of ways, and I look forward to those future conversations. You've been listening to Meg Dunley on Creative Momentum with Meg. Thank you for listening, and until next time, keep building your own creative momentum. See you later.